And so we maybe just start with a moment of silence to think about those alcoholics who have yet to find their way to AA, and still suffering alcoholics who haven't found us. And I'll just start with the set-aside prayer as well, which I've been leaving out the last, through the whole workshop really. God, please help us to set aside everything we think we know about you, God, Alcoholics Anonymous, the steps, the traditions, our literature, our own recovery, and each other and this fellowship and this workshop, so that we may have a new experience with all of these things. Please, God, help us to hear and learn what we need to hear and learn, and to share what we need to share. Amen. And for anyone who wishes to join in saying the responsibility statement, please feel free to join in. I am responsible when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that I am responsible. Okay, now I've just noticed that I've not finished the slide there. So tradition 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio and films. So there's a lot in this one. There will be a lot to discuss. Tradition 11 is one of those, I feel, that gets misquoted and taken out of context a lot and used in all kinds of ways and places where it was never meant to. So the wording there tells us clearly where the boundary of anonymity is. Personal anonymity is at the level of press, radio and films. So as we go through and read the literature, we'll find out more about what that really means. And as each week we have been doing, we look at the long form, and I highly recommend, I love meetings where the traditions are read out, and even more beautiful, recently I was at a meeting where they actually read the long form of the tradition, and that's something that I very rarely ever hear in meetings, is the reading of the long form of the traditions. And they give us so much more meaning and really spell it out without even having to read a whole chapter or do a big study. So I'll read the long form of Tradition 11 for us. Our relations with the general public should be characterised by personal anonymity. We think AA ought to avoid sensational advertising. Our names and pictures as AA members ought not to be broadcast, filmed or publicly printed. Our public relations should be guided by the principle of attraction rather than promotion. There is never need to praise ourselves. We feel it better to let our friends recommend us. So right there, I'm going to go into what I was talking about. People take this out of context. Attraction rather than promotion, I've often heard it interpreted this way, that we're not to approach newcomers, we're not to approach anyone, that we sit back passively and wait for them to come and ask us for help. We are to be attractive to them so they will come and ask us. It's absolute rubbish. That's not what the program says. There's 20 or 30 approach references in the big book, which say, for example, one of the sections in the book says, when therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved. So that tells me if the problem has been solved in me, I have a responsibility to approach someone who has yet to have access the solution to alcoholism, and I am to lay this kit of spiritual tools at their feet. So personal anonymity at the level of press, radio and films is very, very different to personal anonymity, one to the other. Attraction rather than promotion publicly, however, approaching those who are still sick. They don't know who to ask for help or how to ask for help or when or who is a sponsor or what is a sponsor. It's absolutely unfair to land that kind of responsibility on a shivering, shaking, sick newcomer, telling them to get a sponsor. And it does work like that sometimes. There are some people who have enough confidence or desperation or insight or whatever it takes. But many, many others just fall by the wayside because they're floundering around not knowing what to do and not being given any clear direction or instruction, or indeed any, sort of active welcoming, active outreach. And so even the Grapevine Daily quote today, August 3rd, it said, "I am grateful to AA that I have learned some humility. So when offered help, I can now say, yes, I can use your assistance. So at least when I approach a newcomer, I'm giving them the opportunity to say yes. They can say no too, but at least I have made the offer." So without wanting to belabor that point too much, but it's something I feel really strongly about. And there's a lot of myths and misconceptions out there about Alcoholics Anonymous, but also in the room. So it's no wonder that people out there are confused about AA when there's so much confusion right in the rooms. So this is from Language of the Heart, page 91. If anyone doesn't have the book, you can download it for free off the internet. The reading from Language of the Heart, Tradition 11, October 1948, says, "Providence has been looking after the public relations of Alcoholics Anonymous. It can scarcely have been otherwise. Though we are more than a dozen years old, hardly a syllable of criticism or ridicule has ever been spoken of AA. Sadly, that's a very different thing now, 86 years down the track. However, back then, it certainly started off strong. Somehow we have been spared all the pains of medical or religious controversy, and we have good friends, both wet and dry, right and left. Like most societies, we are sometimes scandalous, but never yet in public. From all over the world, naught comes but keen sympathy and downright admiration. Our friends of the press and radio have outdone themselves. Anyone can see that we are in a fair way to be spoiled. Our reputation is already so much better than our actual character. Surely these phenomenal blessings must have a deep purpose. Who doubts that this... Who doubts that this purpose wishes to let every alcoholic in the world know that AA is truly for him? Can he only want his liberation enough? Hence, our messages through public channels have never been seriously discoloured, nor has the searing breath of prejudice ever issued from anywhere. Good public relations are AA lifelines reaching out to the alcoholic who still does not know us. For years to come, our growth is sure to depend upon the strength and number of these lifelines. One serious public relations calamity could always turn thousands away from us to perish, a matter of life and death indeed. And there's lots of AA literature and pamphlets, for example, on speaking at non-AA meetings, speaking in prisons, speaking in rehabs and detoxes. So we have instructions too on how to do this attraction and how to get the message out there. And continuing on from Language of the Heart, the future poses no greater problem or challenge to AA than how best to preserve a friendly and vital relation to all the world about us. Success will rest heavily upon right principles, a wise vigilance, and the deepest personal responsibility on the part of every one of us. Nothing less will do, else our brother may again turn his face to the wall because we did not care enough. So the 11th tradition stands sentinel over the lifelines, announcing that there is no need for self-praise, that it is better to let our friends recommend us, and that our whole public relations policy, contrary to usual customs, should be based upon the principle of attraction rather than promotion. Shot in the arm methods are not for us. No press agents, no promotional devices, no big names. The hazards are too great. Immediate results will always be elusive because easy shortcuts to notoriety can generate permanent and smothering liabilities. So, for example, here in Perth, we have a beautiful friend at a community radio station, and she has been inviting Alcoholics Anonymous to share during her segment for many, many years now. So 12:30 every Monday, there's an AA speaker on the radio, and yeah, she sings our praises. She comes along to AA events once or twice a year, and she's one of our dearest friends and does so much to help us carry the message. So that's, and again, people misunderstanding or misrepresenting the traditions. When I was the radio coordinator, so I held that position for 2 years, where it was my job to find a speaker every Monday for that radio program. I had 3 or 4 people in a group, which surprised me. It was a big book study. I thought these people know the traditions, screwing up their faces and pinching pursing their lips, that this was a violation of the traditions going on the radio, and it's not. So anyway, more and more, therefore, we are emphasising the principle of personal anonymity as it applies to our public relations. We ask of each other the highest degree of personal responsibility in this respect. As a movement, we have been before now tempted to exploit the names of our well-known public characters. And look, these people do it nowadays. There's many famous people out there who've broken their anonymity in public, or maybe other people have done it on their behalf. Maybe it's the press, or someone's leaked the information out there. So I'm sure any one of us could rattle off a dozen names of famous people who are AA members. But our traditions are still there, and each of us can still do whatever we can to uphold them for the purpose of the greater good. And so we have rationalised that other societies, even the best, do the same. As individuals, we have sometimes believed that the public use of our names could demonstrate our personal courage in the face of stigma, so lending power and conviction to news stories and magazine articles. So people's motivations are good on the whole, I think. There's a magazine here called Take 5, and one woman went in there, full name, photo, story about Alcoholics Anonymous. It was a positive, favourable story, but she was paid for the story as well. Whatever it is, people are paid for these stories, $500 or something, and she completely broke this tradition. But, there's no central governing body or anything. Nobody's going to be expelled from AA or punished in any way, because there is God is in charge. That's how it works. But these are not the allures they once were. Vividly, we are becoming aware that no member ought to describe himself in full view of the general public as an AA, even for the most worthy purpose, lest a perilous precedent be set which would tempt others to do likewise for purposes not so worthy. So some people might have good motives, some people might not. Best we just leave it alone. And the final page of that reading, we see that on breaking anonymity by press, radio or pictures, any one of us could easily transfer the valuable name of Alcoholics Anonymous over onto any enterprise or into the midst of any controversy. And that brings to mind for me the internet, which seems to just be a free-for-all. And I'm pretty sure Alcoholics Anonymous does have guidelines about social media and internet. I haven't really looked at it. I don't go onto the internet and put my sobriety data or anything like that on there, but that's just me. So it is becoming our code that there are things that no AA ever does, lest he divert AA from its sole purpose and injure our public relations, and thereby the chances of those sick ones yet to come. To the million alcoholics who have not yet heard our AA story, we should ever say, greetings and welcome. Be assured that we shall never weaken the lifelines which we float out to you. In our public relations, we shall, God willing, keep the faith. And so that was the reading from Language of the Heart. And then we'll go to the illustrated pamphlet, Illustrated Traditions pamphlet. And I always enjoy this one because there's always a very, very insightful reading, but also the cartoons are enjoyable. So we can see one man there talking to a couple. It says, ours is not a secret society. We carry the message anywhere we can. So that is kind of, and people have often commented on it in this workshop, that all the traditions sort of, link in together, and I can see how anonymity, the 12th tradition, which we're looking at next week, links into this as well. We're not a secret society. We're not going to perpetuate stigma and secrecy about our alcoholism or about AA. We have a responsibility to reach those out there who have yet to know about us. So what's this other cartoon there? And down in the bottom corner, but we must ever be aware that self-appointed messiahs speaking for AA through public media can do us great damage. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You know, there's times when I know I'm not the greatest ambassador for AA because I'm human and I'm flawed and I've got defects, and sometimes I get a bit overzealous about AA, and that can be off-putting. So, yeah, it's really good just to put our collective message out there, but not the message of any individual. And then there's a little thing about how to be anonymous on television. So showing, okay, the guy's face, the AA member's face is blacked out. So they're using lighting in a particular way. And of course, these days with modern technology, that would be easily done. And then the other cartoon, not sure what that's about, gifts or donations or door knocking maybe. So yeah, let's have a look. So I'll just read this illustrated pamphlet for us. Information about AA is being offered to the public through all the communications media, in print, over the air. On radio, it's easy to guard members' anonymity, of course, but TV, not in wide use when the traditions were written, is another matter. According to a conference opinion, members are breaking their anonymity when they are identified on TV as AAs and their faces are shown, whether or not their names are given, and yet this medium, with its vast audiences, cannot be ignored. Different techniques have been employed to preserve anonymity on TV. Masks, screens, backlighting that shows AAs only as silhouettes, camera angles showing them only from the back. The shadow method diagrammed here is simple, relaxed, and appropriate. For we are not selling personalities, we are explaining AA. Personal anonymity breaks in the public media not only may discourage timid prospects, they may threaten the anonymity breaker's own sobriety by violating the spirit of the AA program and traditions, which is about humility and self-sacrifice and anonymity. Not I, but we. Alcoholics who have recovered through our program are themselves the strongest attraction that AA has. When people are asked what led them to seek AA help, the answer given most often is an AA member. Their chances would have been slim if all of us had remained completely in hiding. But many of us have chosen to tell our friends, neighbours, employers, co-workers, doctors, or spiritual advisors that we are in AA. And when we do so, we are not breaking our anonymity in the meaning of this tradition. So that's another one of those things where people get confused. They think they mustn't, I mustn't tell anyone I'm in AA, or I mustn't tell anyone in case they ask me. If nobody's ever seen me drinking, nobody's ever going to imagine that I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no possible way that they're going to start asking me about my sobriety. I just blend in with people. I'm just pretty normal. So it's up to me, as and when is appropriate, is to share my story with people. And recently that's been a thing for me in my career at work. I personally have probably been too guarded around my anonymity, and I've been questioning myself about that recently. If I'm worried about the effect on my career, if people know that I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, have I actually surrendered my will and my life over to God's care? Have I really accepted the challenge that God presented to me? Look, you've messed up your life. You've trashed it. It's over. You've had your go at it. Now hand it to me. It's mine. So that's just a bit of my personal story right now. But anyway, continuing the last two paragraphs of Tradition 11 on the illustrated pamphlet. Suppose a sick alcoholic never has the good fortune to meet an AA. How is such a person going to find us? The search will be difficult if the local groups think it should be anonymous too. The tradition is talking about personal anonymity, remember? So it's perfectly okay to put an ad in the local paper, yeah, to let people know we're there. Alcoholics will not be attracted to AA if they don't know that it exists, or if they have distorted, unfavourable impressions of its members or its program. So there are many, many, many unfavourable stories about Alcoholics Anonymous out there circulating. So for those of us who have a positive experience of AA and gratitude for Alcoholics Anonymous, we have a responsibility, as I said, to share that with people, to show the real face of AA in a way, or the real spirit of AA. Giving the general public an accurate picture of AA is the chief job of our public information committees. In addition, they often carry the message to certain groups, from police officers to personnel directors, whose work includes contact with active alcoholics. So that's where our concepts for service and traditions come in as well. That service outside the group level in those committees that help us carry out step 12. So let's go back to the presentation and see where that brings us to. So, yeah, let's go over to Mary. Mary's got some readings to share with us. Thank you, Mary.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Mary, grateful alcoholic. Yeah, first thing I want to do, if it's okay, Tuija, is I remembered, I couldn't remember the name, so I looked it up, and this is actually from Wikipedia. But it has to do with what brought Tradition 11 into existence. And I couldn't remember the person's name, but it says here Hensley, who was the baseball player. Hensley was known for having a drinking problem, one which caused him to be kicked off 4 separate clubs. Hensley, who would later attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings to help himself sober up. He revealed his membership to the press in 1940, becoming the first AA member to break their anonymity on a national level. Hensley's anonymity break was one of the first developments to raise question and concern about the personal anonymity in the organization. And the reason it was brought into question was that shortly after he went public, he relapsed. And so that put a negative light that AA doesn't work. And so that is one of the main reasons specifically for the press that we don't want to divulge that we're members. We can say we're in recovery. There's a lot of celebrities, shall we say, that are in AA, but they say they're in recovery. They don't say that they belong to a specific organization. People can do that. So the two I want to read today are from page 339, November 26th. Let me get my notes here. And the first one is the hazards of publicity. People who symbolize causes and ideas feel a deep human need. We of AA do not question that, but we do have to soberly face the fact that being in the public eye is hazardous, especially for us. and that's 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 181. As a recovered alcoholic, I must make an effort to put into practice the principles of AA's program, which are founded on honesty, truth, and humility. While I was drinking, I was constantly trying to be in the limelight. Now that I am conscious of my mistakes and of my former lack of integrity, it would not be honest to seek prestige, even the justifiable purpose of promoting the AA message of recovery. This is publicity that centers around the AA fellowship and the miracles it produces, is the publicity that centers around the AA fellowship and the miracles it produces not worth much more? Why not let the people around us appreciate by themselves the changes that AA has brought in us? For that will be far better recommendation for the fellowship than any I could make. And then the other one I want to read is called Active Guardians, November 29th, page 342. And it says, to us, however, it represents far more than sound public relations policy. It is more than a denial of self-seeking. This tradition is a constant and practical reminder that personal ambition has no place in AA. In it, each member becomes an active guardian of our fellowship. The basic concept of humility is expressed in the 11th tradition. It allows me to participate completely in the program in such a simple yet profound manner. It fulfills my need to be an integral part of a significant whole. Humility brings me closer to the actual spirit of togetherness and oneness, without which I could not stay sober. In remembering that every member is an example of sobriety, each one living the 11th tradition, I am able to experience freedom from each one of us. I am able to experience freedom because each one of us is anonymous. And so my notes on that, I got the wrong thing here. So my notes, that first of all, that as alcoholics, addicts, alcoholics, notoriety is something we seek. We want to be seen. We want to be in the public eye, whether it's in a negative or a positive light. We seek that attention. And then that seeking that attention is extremely hazardous for us, because it boosts our ego and it makes us self-centered and self-seeking. And the principles of honesty, truth, and humility, if I'm honest, if I'm truthful, if I'm humble, then I'm not going to be self-seeking, and I'm not going to be seeking notoriety and publicity. To let those around us see the changes. An example, a couple of the examples that I can exemplify in my life is that, my husband and I are both in recovery, but he visits AA. He does not participate. He's not an active member, but I see him continually change because of the way I've changed. And another, personal example of that is just the other day, my daughter reached out to us because a very good friend of theirs, who lives in another state, is in active addiction, and they're very frightened for this person. And she called us, and we were able to give her our experience and carry the message of AA and the ways to help people without promoting ourselves. that again, that personal ambition, there's no place for that. I have there is a meeting that my higher power gave me the intuition and ability to start. And it really upsets me when people say it's my meeting. I maybe created it with my higher power, but it's not my meeting. And that is, I don't want that, that claim. That's my higher power that did that. It's not me. And the ability to keep, the tragic, the shameful things that have happened in my past, if that was to be made public, press, radio, and film, I'm not going to want to share that information. If I can share it with like-minded people, then I'm going to be a willing participant. But if I know that that information is going to be shared publicly, I'm not going to even consider joining. That we can't be secret. It has to, the membership is private, the membership is secret, but the organization has to be public. People have to know about us. And one of the things that I see as a way to kind of make it curious or something like that is that I've heard that, like, if someone is traveling, and they're having a hard time, to go to someone with a PA, whether it's the ticket counter or something like that, and ask them to page Bill W to a specific area. And that will bring fellow AA members to you, but it may also make other people question and make other people curious. Whereas if you said, I need an AA member to come such and such a place, people are going to have both negative and positive reactions to that. But if you just say, I need a friend of Bill W to come, or, whatever, it keeps that anonymity, and creates some kind of curiosity. And then, that my recovery can plant the seed for someone who is still in their active addiction. And that is the best way. That's the attraction. I have another example is, I have a really good friend of mine whose partner has been in active addiction for most of his life. And she finally, put her foot down and said, you go to treatment or we're done. And she decided to go ahead and proceed with the divorce process. But I visited with her and she was talking to me, and I was able to read some of the stuff from the big book to her, which allowed her to accept the changes he was making. And today she's put those divorce proceedings on hold, and she's giving him a chance. Not only because he changed, but because she has seen the change in me and knows that it's possible. So I didn't think I would have a lot to say on this, and I don't know if I'm just kind of repeating myself and what's already been said, but we have to be careful, because, like was said about the negative messages that are carried, because I was guilty of that prior to coming in, because I attended another 12-step program and my anonymity got broken, and I said I'd never have anything to do with any of those, and I badmouthed all 12-step programs because I had a bad experience. And that's another example of the attraction rather than promotion, because I was not attracted. I was repelled from that meeting. So then I tried to repel other people from the program, where now it's the complete and total opposite. I was brought into a meeting not knowing it was an AA meeting, but I instantly felt identification. And that is what attracted me to the program. If somebody had told me, oh, you need to go to AA, AA is wonderful, da da da, I wouldn't have gone. But by being surprised that it was an AA meeting and hearing what people had to say, it attracted me, and it's totally changed my life. And I think it's changed a lot of other people's lives too. So, yeah, that's what I've got to say on that. I'm rambling. Sorry, ladies.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing that story about the history of the beginnings of this tradition and how it came about. That was excellent, but all of it, very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time and effort and energy you put in, and it always adds so much to the workshop. So then the final thing that we're looking at is the traditions checklist, which is from the Grapevine. And I'd always looked at this and thought this was for the groups to take inventory, but it can be, but it can also be for me to take inventory of myself. How am I? How do I measure up as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous by applying the principles of the traditions to myself personally? And just before I go any further, so I don't forget, for anyone who is new, there is a WhatsApp group attached to this group as well, where I put in flyers or information, sometimes when group members are sharing at other meetings. And there's also the survey. I've had 4 responses to the survey. We are going to do the 12 concepts next, commencing on the 24th of August. So I think that's a 2-week break after the traditions finish. So the concepts will commence on the 24th of August. 4 people have said they'll come along, so including me, there'll be at least 5 of us. 75 or 3 out of 4 people said to keep the format the same. 1 person said they wanted to rotate the lead each week, and so we'll try and we'll see. Anyway, I'm just going to. I'm no expert, not on anything, not the steps or the traditions or anything. I'm learning just as much as anyone, and especially about the concepts. That's going to be a whole new thing for me. Imagine 28 years sober and I don't know anything about the concepts. But I grab onto what Jill said, to quote Jill, something about we probably know more about the concepts than we think we do. So I hope that's true. But either way, I'm going to learn. And I'm just going to follow the format set out on that website, takethe12.org. So they have got a step study, a tradition study, and a concept study. I haven't looked at it yet because it's too far in advance, but that's my idea so far. And the other thing, so I think there's still about 12 or 18 hours left. If anyone hasn't done the survey yet and wants to put your 2 cents worth in, you can. And just the comments I've got is someone made a suggestion of highlighting the promises within each step. I like that. That would be cool to go specifically through all of the steps in all the promises in all the steps. That would be cool. Yeah, and obviously someone else made the comment that it would be great to revisit the 12 steps. Not sure if they meant the steps through the big book or whether you actually meant the steps in the 12 and 12, but either way, of course, that is AA, that's the steps. What's the definition of insanity? Coming to 12-step meetings and not using the steps. And the other one said they've enjoyed the formatting of the traditions meeting. I've enjoyed it as well. I hope you all have enjoyed it. And being our second last week. So again, tradition 11, our public relations policy. So our public relations, not our individual interpersonal relations, but AA as a whole for our fellowship, the worldwide fellowship is based on attraction rather than promotion. So we're not raising funds for advertising, which is very expensive. We're not using big names to try to draw the crowds. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio and films, not above it, not below it. And I've got something from Dr. Bob to clarify that, make it crystal clear. So there's 8 questions on this traditions checklist for Tradition 11. So 1, do I sometimes promote AA so fanatically that I might make it seem unattractive? I've probably been guilty of that at times. So I have to remember to try to be neutral and tone it down a bit, I think, outside of AA. Inside, but even inside AA, I don't know. Maybe my zeal could put a newcomer off, I'm not sure. Anyway, number 2, am I always careful to keep the confidences shared with me as an AA member? 3, am I careful about throwing AA members' names around, even within the fellowship? 4, am I ashamed of being a recovered or recovering alcoholic? 5, what would AA be like if we were not guided by the ideas in Tradition 11? Where would I be? I think it'd be pretty messy. 6, am I careful not to identify myself or others as members of AA when I post certain things on social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram? One time I was in a country town for a roundup, and there's a particular member here in Perth who's very prolific on social media. She seems to achieve a lot in life. She's busy, she's married, got a family, but she's also posting on Facebook every 5 minutes. I don't know how she does it. And there was a photo of myself and this woman and 2 other people at this holiday home that we'd rented. And a member contacted me and said, did you know your photo is on Facebook? Well, there was a photo of us, but it didn't say anything about AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, AA Roundup. There was nothing connected to my photo about that. So maybe if there were other members of the fellowship who were looking at those photos, they might put 2 and 2 together. I don't know, but, you know, it didn't bother me. It didn't upset me. So who's to say? 7, is my AA sobriety attractive enough that a sick drunk would want such a quality for himself? That's a good one. Yeah. Am I living the way of honesty, truth, humility, patience, tolerance, kindliness, love, compassion, and a welcoming spirit? 8, if my group has its own website, have we considered this tradition when we designed it? How accessible is it, and the type of content that it offers? And then to Dr. Bob, I absolutely love this. Dr. Bob on Tradition 11, we need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio and films. Dr. Bob, co-founder of AA, commented on Tradition 11 as follows. Since our tradition on anonymity designates the exact level where the line should be held, it must be obvious to anyone who can read and understand the English language that to maintain anonymity at any other level is definitely a violation of this tradition. The AA who hides his identity from his fellow AA by using only a given name violates the tradition just as much as the AA who permits his name to appear in the press in connection with matters pertaining to AA. And so that's one of these old ideas that nobody's ever allowed to know our last name because we're anonymous. I mean, I don't tell people my last name simply because it's very long and people can't spell it, say it, can't remember it or whatever. But if we're so secret and anonymous from each other, what happens when I go to the hospital when I know that, you know, Jill S is in hospital and I don't know her last name and I turn up saying I'd like to visit Jill? They're going to say, Jill who? Oh, I don't know. I know she's from Scotland, but I don't know her last name. And then the rest of Dr. Bob's statement there. The former is maintaining his anonymity above the level of press, radio and films, and the latter is maintaining his anonymity below the level of press, radio and films, whereas the tradition states that we should maintain our anonymity at the level of press, radio and films. So I think that's just a really important qualification there from Dr. Bob. And so he had the final word on Tradition 11, except now the floor is open for shares, questions, comments.
Hi, my name is Cecilia, and I'm an alcoholic. I wanted to just share a little bit. It's my first time in this particular meeting. I have almost 2 years of sobriety in October 15th, God willing. This is really good for me to have this meeting right now and just to be reminded. I personally, I'm going through a lot of struggles, but I'm not going to get into that. I want to stick with the solution and with the topic of this. I don't know, there's like so much. There's just so much, I didn't realize we were going to go so deeply into step 11. I'm like, wow, I'm just kind of blown away a little bit. Because I've never studied it in this way, it's just cool. It's just very cool. So I want to thank you for the invite, and it's just me coming to this meeting for the first time is like an example of that attraction, versus promotion or whatever. A dear friend of mine who's here invited me to come, and I'm not even going to say her name because, same reason. I probably could, but but I don't know. It's just a fabulous example. I'm like realizing, wow, I'm like an example of this thing, this thing that we do in AA, and it's just so beautiful. I love the philosophy. I love that whole idea of attraction versus promotion, and not going on your self-will run riot, and ego and ambition, and all of those things that we all want to do, especially as alcoholics. Oh my God, I want to be the center of attention. Look at me, look at me, look at me. But I've learned to tone that down, and I've learned to have, those beautiful qualities that you just listed, which I can't remember all of them, but, love, patience, tolerance, understanding, kindness, etc. And so thank you for that. Thank you all. And I want to hear from other people too, so I'll share the time.
Thank you for sharing with us, Ceci, and welcome again. Wonderful to have you here. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Yeah. The two new ladies. I thought I'd share. Anyway, it flashed up about questions and answers and shares, and I'm looking for some feedback from what I'm going to say. It is around the tradition 11, and where I am, the meetings are a lot like just come to meetings and don't drink. And I recovered from the obsession, the insanity to drink alcohol. I was restored 10 years ago plus. And however, I didn't embrace the rest of the program and start to live in it. 2 years sober, I got cancer, and that really took a lump. Everything was focused on the treatment of cancer. I've not been good at reaching out to people at all. I just find it really hard and very easy to isolate. But when I do go to AA meetings, I get a bit overzealous about the way that I was led through the 12 steps, and the obsession to drink was removed, and I get so passionate about it because it was such a strong miracle from God. And how can I not be passionate? At least if I'm not drinking alcohol, at least I've got half a chance. So I do get passionate about that. But there's one person that's on my mind at the moment, who has been around AA meetings with relapsing for 10 years plus, and it's this person, people die, and I see it quite regular. It's a man, so the gender thing is difficult. When I first recovered, I tried to pass it on to him, and I've took him through the first 3 steps as an individual, willing him to get better, and he decided to go separate, not continue around, the steps, and he didn't recover, and left him, and he's had 1 or 2 people helping him, and he's not recovered. And it's just on my mind now, if this man dies, have I done enough to attract him with my recovery? Because my personality is not necessarily an attractive personality, I don't think. I isolate, I don't attend meetings regularly, I don't, practice the program. So I think, to me, I'm just not drinking. But this is the first step in recovery, especially for this person, that if you don't stop drinking, he's going to die, isn't it, more than likely? So, and it's God's will, and it's attraction rather than promotion. But this individual is just on my mind at the moment, and it obviously comes into tradition 11, and I pass it to God and pray, and but I'm just a bit lost as to the individuals, because I can do individual work with people and help them, but as far as the bigger message, I just really struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. So, I mean, for me, number one, this is just me, I have to be a committed member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So my basic building block is that I'm a member of a home group where I have a service position. That way I am consistent, committed, responsible, reliable, all those things which are the opposite of my nature, right? So I do that, and that way I'm an example. When a newcomer comes or a struggling person comes, they see me there every week. People know where to find me if they want to. That's where I am consistent. The other thing is, look, that's a good question to think. People are dying. People die from alcoholism all the time. Have I done enough? That's a good one. Yeah, I want my conscience clear to know that I've done what I can. But you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so on page 96 in the big book, it gives us that instruction. If they do nothing or argue, we just maintain our own sobriety, but search out another alcoholic. You are sure to find one who desperately wants what you're offering. So, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but there will be someone out there who wants my brand of sobriety, and same for all of us. This is the beauty of it. Everyone's going to find someone that's a suitable sponsor for them. And then on page 164 in the big book, it said, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. That's good, simple, clear instructions and direction. Ask every morning, what God, show me please what I can do to help the person who is still sick. That's one part. And then the other part is then sit and listen and be still and wait for the answers. And it said here, the answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right. Step 10, continuing to take personal inventory. 11, seeking through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. And then 12, I've got a message to carry. So see to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. Beautiful promise. This is the great fact for us. And that actually makes me think of the step 12 promises, which I'm just going to quickly read. And then, where are we? Page... chapter 7. So this is recently we had our Bunbury 75th anniversary, and these words were just In fact, my whole week that I spent down south in the country areas, life will take on new meaning to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. So if I'm not having frequent contact with newcomers, frequent contact with my home group members and other AA members, I'm missing out on the bright spot in my life, according to our program. Are there any other comments, questions, shares? And I don't know how to pronounce this name, Biarritz or something. I think it's in France. I'm sharing there on Saturday, 2:30 p.m. UK time, and at the As Bill Sees It meeting out of Sheffield, 1 p.m. UK time on Sunday. Oh, that's the 21st of August. So if anyone would like to come along there, it's always great to see familiar faces when I'm sharing somewhere at an online AA meeting. Any other shares or comments? Karen?
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name's Karen. I'm grateful recovered alcoholic. And I just want to say thank you, Tuija, for all the information you've given us today, and also to thank Mary for bringing this tradition to life and giving it some meaning, because it reminded me of, you talked about this guy, Hensley, was it? Being the first person to go public with representing AA as a source of recovery, and then he later drank. And I can remember when I first got sober, wanting to tell everyone, tell the whole street, go around with placards almost. I was so excited, and my sponsor warned me about the dangers of representing AA. Yes, I could allow people to see that I've changed. If they ask me, I could tell them that I'm in recovery, but it wasn't my job to be public in announcing, lest I slipped and drank again and put AA into ill repute. And I couldn't see that for a little while. Today, I can, and I realized that it wasn't for me. It wasn't for ego. I was still feeling very, I suppose, humble, because this gift had just been given to me. But I was just so excited, just like a child, really, wanting to share it with the whole world, and realize that I have to be careful and of my overzealous nature, because that is my nature. But at the same time, if I think it's getting that balance again. Tuija, you mentioned, being attracting people. If I can't but help show my gratitude and the joy I get from recovery when I'm talking to a newcomer. And it does lift me. So it's a natural thing. It's not something forced. So I think that's what attracted me to my sponsor, was the joy and her demeanor. But she didn't go around sort of publicly announcing things. And it says, let the public, and Mary share, you made it clear that this tradition says, let AA speak for itself, by allowing, you said, it ripples out. I liked how you said it rippled out to your husband and people in the family, and they can see what AA does. And it reminded me of a good friend who's not in AA, because not all my friends do know, because I have to use discretion, because some friends are, it's hard to say this, gossips, in the nicest possible way. I love them and they're good to me, but I know they can't keep secrets. So, if I have to use discretion sometimes, because who knows what sides of me she has seen, and she might have opinions that AA isn't that good. So, you know, I am careful. But I have another friend who's not in AA, who's struggling with resentments, knows I'm in the fellowship, and wanted to go through the book with me. She's not an alcoholic, but she was struggling with life and resentments, you know, and now she praises AA. Well, that's fine. She can do that, but I can't, you know, the danger of prestige and saying, look how I am today, you know, that's not my place. It makes me realize, yes, it's, I've got to be very careful, but I do love the ripple effect. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Tuija, and thank you, Julie and Ceci, for sharing also.
Thank you, Karen. And thanks, everyone. And that just brings us to the end of the workshop. So if anyone would like to unmute and join in with reciting the responsibility statement, you can do that. I am responsible. When anyone anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that I am responsible.
I am responsible.
Thank you, everyone. And just to let people know, dear Jackie would be with us,